Welcome to Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. You will hear from industry leaders covering innovative, cutting-edge business, learning, and HR topics that weave current market research and technology into each episode. Our Excellence at Work podcast is hosted by Brandon Hall Group's Chief Operating Officer and Principal HCM Analyst, Rachel Cook.
Hi, and this is Rachel Cook with Brandon Hall Group. I'm the COO and the host of our Excellence at Work podcast. Welcome. It's great to have everyone here today, and I'm looking forward to my discussion with David Pregler, the Senior Managing Principal at Latitude Learning and also Product Manager. Hi, David. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Rachel. How about you?
I'm doing great. And again, it's nice to have you back. You've been on the podcast with me already several times over the last year. So it's always a great chat with you. And today we're going to be talking about the impact of measurement and what companies are doing or lack of doing as it relates to their extended enterprise programs and training. We've done some research this past year as well, and we've conducted a webinar earlier in the year. So we wanted just to kind of continue the dialogue here as you and we see the importance of measurement and also the challenges that we are seeing, and also the lack of that companies are doing. And it's crazy, I would say, just because we all know how important it is, and we all know the level of so many different factors that can impact the business relationship, that can impact the production. And I'm gonna obviously want to hear from you. So before I talk about everything we're going to cover, just to kind of give you a sense too of some points we saw in our research. We saw that the number of companies that find it necessarily or beneficial to deliver training to external audiences such as customers, channel partners, distributors, resellers, and franchisees, and more in order to grow and to have greater impact. Only 2/3 of organizations deliver learning to at least one of these external or non-employee groups. So that's quite a large amount of organizations that are providing some type of training to this extended enterprise. And David, I forgot to also share a little bit about your background for those who are listening. I think because you've been on with me so much.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Before we jump into our topic here, as I mentioned, David is the Senior Managing Principal at Latitude Learning. And he has spent his career designing and implementing business-focused solutions that synthesize business needs with technology. He brings these talents to Latitude Learning LMS and is leading efforts to engage the market and address the future demands of the extended enterprise training space. And so, again, as you can see, he's got a lot of experience and knowledge in this space. Also, Latitude Learning has received a Brandon Hall Group Excellence Awards, a gold one in learning in 2021, and they are a preferred provider. They've been a great partner of ours, and we love working with them. And I'm looking forward to just diving deeper into our discussion today to bring you some advice of if you are one of these organizations that are not measuring learning or are doing so but could do it better. Let's hear from David. And can you just kind of share a little bit about what from the research that we've done and from what you're seeing, which part of the organization owns the objectives of training for the extended enterprise? And then I think that will kind of help us kind of set the tone here of how we should be thinking about it.
Perfect. Now, Rachel, thank you for the introduction. And again, it's fun to be back and talking about this. I know Latitude Learning brings a different flavor to the table with regards to, as a learning management system or learning management company, we are focused on really training the extended enterprise. Doesn't mean we don't do the other things, but it's really our passion to make sure we do it and do it well. What we mean by the extended enterprise is organizations that rely on companies that rely on partner organizations to deliver, sell, service, and support the products they have out there. And it doesn't matter what your products are. Often I'll refer to automotive and heavy industry and that kind of stuff is where we do a lot of work. But the reality is it doesn't matter what kind of products you sell. You have these networks that you're relying on to support them. So that's generally what we mean by training in the extended enterprise. But the fascinating thing is when you think about a learning and development function, a learning delivery function, L&D function of any type, right? Oftentimes we think in the classic model, hey, I'm an L&D function. I live under HR and I'm trying to train my employees. Well, when you think about the extended enterprise, where that L&D function lives often can vary. It depends on what you're looking at. If you're training suppliers, oftentimes the L&D function lives in sales and operations. It doesn't stand by itself. If you're thinking about product, it could fail, and resellers and those kinds of things. It can often live in the sales group or the product group, and it really does vary. And it changes dramatically what the requirements for training are. And so really setting that landscape and understanding what those complexities, what those mean, changes how you need to operate as an L&D function, as an L&D manager, to be a value-added partner. And unfortunately, what we see across the learning landscape is oftentimes the measurement of training and the impact of training is what we all want to achieve. Unfortunately, not a lot of people are using the right tools to be able to do that. And unfortunately, the survey results that you guys got late last year and early this year that we talked about in February really didn't give us a lot of confidence that people were doing it in the right way. And so I think that's why we wanted to have this conversation today.
And what did we see? How are organizations measuring the extended enterprise?
Well, I think the funny thing is when you look at it, and I'm going to change a reference here so I can look at it quickly. First of all, we know for a fact in the survey, 23% of organizations aren't measuring in any way, shape, or form, which is a huge number. When you think about you're investing all this money in training people and doing what they're doing, to not measure it all is just a scary thing, to have it be that large. But the majority of the organizations that are actually going through and doing measurement, they're using tools that really aren't measuring the impact of training. They're doing learner surveys. Did you like the course? Customer satisfaction scores is a metric that's out there. Are getting people satisfied with the services they're receiving from the company? Testing and assessment is a way to validate that someone's learned something. Course completions, why people are using course completions. Others say, look, I've taken the class, that's great. Do I learn anything? How you use that as a measurement is kind of confusing. And questionnaires, like, again, sort of this survey-based stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you look at those numbers right now, those are the highest ones being used, 65% for learner surveys, all the way down to 35% for questionnaires. It isn't until you get into predetermined KPIs, what are the performance indicators and other things that are out there, and performance data of the network that are much smaller numbers, 31%, 27%, sales data, and those kinds of what are really driving an organization. Very small numbers are actually using the real data of the entity of the extended enterprise to drive their training. So there's a real disconnect here, and we believe a real profound opportunity for people that are doing training in this space to have a great impact on the business just by beginning to align their training with the measurements that are already there.
And to just continue on that point, why is it detrimental to the impact of the extended enterprise training programs not to measure them effectively?
Well, it's detrimental. The primary reason is that when your training program lives under one of these separate entities like sales or product or whatever it might be, they have very distinct objectives with regards to how they're moving the needle for the organization. Move more units, mm-hmm. sell more parts, have higher impact. And if you're not aligning with those things, you're leaving something on the table, and more importantly, you're not really seen as a value partner to the people you're working with. And if you can begin to align those things together, it really does have a huge change what's going on. Also, it gives you a clear idea as you begin to roll out these changes and you roll out your training. Am I moving the needle in the right kind of way? You're not looking at some ethereal target over here. You're actually using real sales data or real data that's being used to measure that organization already. And the other thing is it's accepted more widely because oftentimes these organizations already have scorecards, already have evaluation matrices, already have these things that are out in the network. So the entities within that network, the ones that you're training, the ones you're responsible for getting up to speed on new products and support and all the things that go along with that, they already have their drivers. So if you actually align your training with those drivers, you get a lot more impact of your training program just simply because they know what they're being measured by. And when you begin to tie those things together, it truly does have a great impact. If you're working over here, if you're working away from that, you're swimming uphill unnecessarily, or swimming upstream unnecessarily.
So we saw the challenges and the lack of data that supports businesses from having a better connection with their extended enterprise.
Right.
Does that start with communication? How do we? What are the factors or steps would you say to help bridge this gap?
I think that there are a couple of things that you need to look at as an organization if you aren't currently doing that. One, we know that a lot aren't. Two, the ones that aren't using the right things. The ones that are doing the right things, you got to look at the network you're supporting. And the way we would advise people and the way we work with individuals and organizations now is really helping them to understand what is going on and what are the key drivers for the networks you're supporting. What are the KPIs? What are the measurement tools? What are the elements that are important to that organization? And then beginning to align your training to those requirements, and even going a step further, bringing those elements actually into your training and measurement overall. So what you end up having is, if I'm going to try to move the needle on fixed first visit scores, which is a common phrase, or every organization that repairs parts or repairs product has this concept of, did I repair it right the first time? Right? When you as a customer bring your car into a dealership, that dealership technician is measured on as an FFV, a fixed first visit or fixed right first time score, or something along those lines. If you're flagging in that requirement and you roll out training to help someone improve in that, what you see is an uptick in those FFVs. So now you're not just simply saying, let me put a thing out there about repairing something better. You're really emphasizing that it comes out and is part of the training program. And what you're rolling out from a training perspective is actually driving that metric for you. Now, again, one of the problems of doing this on a large scale is the subtleties of improvement are sometimes, smaller than people would like. But the reality is, as you roll these things out, you see a 1 or 2% change in those FFV scores, which directly impacts the bottom line in terms of the lower warranty costs or the number of parts sold or whatever you're trying to measure. And it really is very impactful. So to get started, you have to look at the network the entity you belong under your L&D function operates under. And then from there, what are the key KPIs or what are the drivers they use to measure the performance of the network, and then align the training and then bring those things in and really make them part of the training program, because that alignment with the performance of the network and everything else really does have a huge impact. And it really changes you from being a cost center to being a value-added partner to the person you're working with, the entities you're working with in your company.
And how are you collecting this information? Is this done through a combination of focus groups?
That's a great question. Most of the organizations, it's fascinating when we get into these conversations, they're already collecting them through whatever means. They're using large data libraries and data acquisition things, and they're already evaluating this stuff independently. Leadership teams are sitting down like, are we doing the right thing? Are we moving the right number of products? Are we doing the doing those. So it's already the standard big business lexicon for these entities.
Mm-hmm.
It's not usually tough to go find them. What is tough is marrying them with your training program and making sure you're aligning them together. So
Mm-hmm.
we've seen organizations use business warehouses and data analytics, but the right thing to do is how you bring those in and marry them together with the training. So you can, and that's really where it gets difficult. But the
Right.
getting the data is actually pretty straightforward because they already use it today. They already
Mm-hmm.
use this data. It's a standard mechanism that management teams use to make sure their networks are performing at an optimal level. And I
Right.
can take it one step further to set real quick. You can even argue as you build this thing out, knowing that you have the right mix of talent in that network. You're a
Mm-hmm.
dealership of this size or of this makeup. You should have X number of people this type, and Y number of people that type, and Z number of people that type of, and then as you build up more data, you can see ones that performing higher and performing lower. You can get the right
Mm-hmm.
skill mix and everything else. So it really can be very multi-layered, but just to get started is the most important thing.
Right. And we're finding too, a lot of it is not about having the data, it's about understanding the data and how to synthesize through the data, because sometimes there's so much of it. How do you scale back and really kind of distill what you
It's
need in order to make the right decisions?
that's a great point. There's the phrase analysis paralysis, right? There's a lot of data out there, right? What are we
Mhm.
trying to move? And oftentimes when we look at the data sets that companies put together, data geeks really love what they see because they can get in really deep, and that's not as necessary. You can keep it at a more macro level,
Mhm.
using things that are more broad, that are apparent, and that will drive change lower throughout the organization to make sure if our focus is quality or FFV or parts sold or units sold or whatever it might be, what do we need
Mhm.
to do to impact that, right? So you don't need to consume them all. You
Mhm.
just need to find the important ones, decide what they are, and actually choose which ones you're going to work on. Because if you try to swallow the whole elephant, you're not going to be successful either. So pick the things you start with. You usually start with individual, and then dovetail up or collect up, and then talk about a dealership. And then from the dealership, you can talk about the network. So usually it's easier to simplify down the individual level. Make sure you know
Mhm.
what those factors are. If you're a salesperson, you're measured this way. If you're a repair person, you're this way. If you're a part person, you're measured this way. Fine, let's bring those metrics in. Let's make them part of everything. Make them part of your curriculum, part of your certification. So they're there in front of you, and then it begins to roll up. Then you can talk about dealerships and the network overall, and it really is pretty profound when you see it all work together well.
Right. And how ongoing should this conversation be about the metrics piece? Is
I
this
think it should be an ongoing conversation. I mean, first of all, when you start there, it changes your conversation between you as the L&D provider and the entity you're working with. Um, because it changes the business conversation. It really does change to from being, hey, I'm just simply out here delivering training to no, how do I help you do your job better? How do I help this network perform better? That has to be our joint objective.
Mhm.
And then what is common in these networks is the measurements and what is a KPI this month or this year is going to evolve next year. Maybe this one is falling off out of popularity and there's something new that's emerging. So let me put it out there. And what you want to make sure is that if as you're bringing those things in, if those are changing your alignment, then you have to adapt. Well, you have to adapt as well. So it's an ongoing conversation. These networks are never static. That's one of the things that is very different than HR programs for the most part, in the sense that what it means to be certified today may be different tomorrow because the products you're selling, the requirements you're selling, the services you're providing, all the things that go into that, it's constantly evolving. Products are always changing, needs are always changing. So that
Mhm.
conversation about the metrics and KPIs has to be equally dynamic. It's not necessarily weekly. There may be a measurement thing every week, every month to see how they're doing, but it's definitely an annual conversation. It's definitely something you have to out there make sure that your next annualized programs are coming out are in alignment with where the organization is going.
Right. And as frequent as you are providing the training or performance support,
Mm-hmm.
you it really should align with that
It
that
should definitely the measurement. The report is the key factors are aligning your training program with the KPIs and generating what it's going to be. can be an annualized activity.
Right.
The daily view of where those KPIs are at and putting them in front of the face of the trainer or the trainee, the training management and the management along the way, that's a daily thing. That is like, okay, how frequently are we updating that data? Because if I'm a technician and for me to be certified as level 1 includes me to have an FFV score above 95%, what I really need at that point is I need to know that it's there. It needs to be in front of me so I know where I stand. And so the reminder of it is a daily activity. The alignment can be a less frequent or an annualized based activity, if that makes sense.
Right. No, absolutely. And as we are wrapping up, what else, any additional advice do you have for the extended enterprise?
I think it's vitally important. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. I think it's vitally important that what we've seen out there, and I've used the phrase probably a couple of times during this podcast, is that when we see organizations doing this and doing it well, that the training, the L&D leadership becomes a value-added partner to the entity. And then it's not an after-the-fact train on this thing. It's now let's bring them to the table early on and prepare. You have to get started at some point. We really don't. We really believe that using these non-impactful measurement tools really is setting people backwards. You want to make sure that you begin to align yourself from business perspective. Start small, bring those things in, and start it. Pick one little area and start there. And when you see the benefits of it, you can expand to the next one and the next one and the next one. You don't have to swallow the elephant whole, to use a phrase.
It's a good way to wrap up today. Thank you, David, and enjoy the rest of your week and also the kickoff of your summer here. Sounds like you're starting to experience some nice weather, so enjoy.
Well, Rachel, thank you very much. A lot of fun. Yes, we're in Michigan, not Florida, so therefore our summer is just starting here. So enjoying some golf and some other things. So thank you again for your time. Look forward to the next time we get to chat.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.